The queen's offer. The sky was dark and quiet, but the ground was shaking. People looked up and saw a huge alien ship coming down slowly. It was bigger than any building, louder than any storm, and brighter than the sun. Soldiers stood ready, weapons pointed, cameras rolled, the world was watching. From the center of the ship, a golden light appeared. A tall door opened, and out came the alien queen. She was tall, graceful, her skin shining like silver, her eyes glowing blue, her steps soft but strong. Her dress was made of stars, and her voice was like music. She walked slowly toward the crowd, her royal guards behind her. The people stepped back. The air was cold but heavy. Something was coming, something big. Then she stopped in front of the human leader and raised her hand. "I come in peace," she said. "As promised, the war is over and Earth has won." Her voice echoed in every speaker around the world. Then she turned her eyes toward one man. He stood alone, strong, wearing a simple black jacket, his face calm, but his eyes full of fire. His name was John, Earth's greatest warrior, the man who led the final attack, the one who made the alien army fall. The queen looked at him and then smiled. She raised her arms, and her guards stepped back. "As a gift of peace," she said, "I offer myself to you. Take me, and the stars will obey you. Marry me, and the galaxies will serve you. I am yours." Everyone was shocked, the people cheered, the media went crazy. Even the alien soldiers looked surprised. The queen had never bowed to anyone. But now she was offering herself. But John said nothing. He looked at her, then looked away. He started walking slowly, not toward the queen, but away from her. His eyes were searching, scanning the ground near the ship. Then he stopped. There, in the shadow of the giant ship, near some broken crates and empty boxes, a small figure was lying on the ground, weak, dirty, thin, and almost invisible. She was an alien too, but not like the queen. Her clothes were torn, her skin was dull, and her body was shaking with cold. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days, her eyes half open, as if she had given up. John knelt beside her, lifted her gently. She tried to speak but coughed. He gave her water. She looked at him confused, afraid, like no one had ever helped her before. Then John stood up, holding her in his arms, and turned back toward the queen. "I choose her," he said. The whole world went silent. The queen's smile froze, her eyes wide, her hands still in the air. "You what?" she said softly, but the mic caught it, and everyone heard. "I choose her," John repeated, louder this time. "Not you, not your crown, not your stars, I choose this one." People started whispering, reporters asked questions, alien guards looked at each other. No one understood what just happened. The queen's face was calm, but inside she was burning. She stepped forward. "She is nothing," she said. "A beggar, a lost thing. She has no name, no family, no power." John looked at the weak alien girl in his arms, her eyes slowly meeting his. Something hidden deep inside them. Something old, something broken. "Maybe," John said. "But she is real, and she needs help. Not a throne, not gold, just kindness." The queen stood silent, her hands lowering slowly, the wind blowing through her dress, the stars behind her still shining. But they felt cold now, distant. John walked away with the girl, the alien crowd watching, whispering, some in confusion, some in fear. In the shadows of the ship, one alien guard whispered to another. "He refused the queen. No one has ever done that before." Another guard nodded slowly. "And he chose the ghost girl, the one we were told to forget." Far away, in a secret room of the ship, an old alien watched a screen, his eyes narrowing, his voice a whisper. He has found her. And deep inside the homeless girl's eyes, for a second, a tiny light blinked. Something hidden, something ancient, something the queen had buried long ago. She had no name, no home, no voice that anyone remembered. She slept in shadows, breathed in silence, and lived in corners where light did not go. Long before the queen wore her crown, long before the war, this girl had danced in the starlight, not as a servant, not as a beggar, but as something more, something now forgotten. Now she was just bones wrapped in dust, eyes that refused to close, and hands too tired to beg. Her back bent from years of hiding, her heart quiet like the space between galaxies. The world knew the queen. They praised her beauty, her wisdom, her power, but no one knew the girl the queen had once betrayed. When John carried her across the landing bay, people stared, some in disgust, some in confusion. The queen's guards clenched their fists. The queen herself smiled, but her eyes had turned cold like frozen glass. Inside a silver chamber, John laid her down gently, gave her food, covered her with a cloak, sat beside her like a friend. Not a hero, not a warrior. She looked at him with fear, then slowly with curiosity, then silence, pure silence, as if she could not believe what was happening. Her memories came in pieces, broken, shattered, like glass on a cold floor. She once lived in the royal city, among temples of silver and skies full of songs. Her people were wise, soft-spoken, full of light. But when the queen rose, the city burned, and the girl's name was erased from history. The girl had seen her parents fall, had been thrown into the dark cellars below the palace, marked as cursed, forgotten, and left to die. But she did not die. She crawled through the pipes, the wires, the hidden tunnels of the ship, living like a shadow, unseen, unheard, until now. John gave her no questions, only kindness, and that kindness began to wake something inside her. One night she stood up slowly, walked to the mirror, saw her reflection. A thin frame, hollow eyes, but behind the dirt and sadness, she saw something familiar, something lost. She touched the glass, and for a second, the mirror flickered, not broken, not cracked, but alive. In the palace, the queen watched this from a secret screen, her fingers tight on her golden throne. She leaned forward and whispered to her advisor. "She is starting to remember." The advisor looked worried. "We should remove her, before he learns the truth." The queen smiled again, not with joy, but with quiet danger. "Let him look. Let her breathe. They will come to me when the stars turn red." Back in the chamber, the girl sat alone, holding a small stone John had given her. Smooth, warm, simple, but to her, it felt heavier than any crown. She looked up at the sky through the glass roof, stars blinking above her, and for the first time in many years, her lips moved, her voice was soft, like a forgotten song. "I had a name once." John heard her from the door. He did not speak. He only nodded, letting her find her words, her truth, her strength. In the dark corners of the ship, some old machines began to hum, ancient programs waking up, strange symbols flashing. The queen's engineers noticed but said nothing. An old soldier walked the hallway near John's room, stopped, stared at the door, and whispered to himself, "I saw those eyes before, long ago, before the queen." He turned and walked away, his hands shaking. Somewhere deep in the ship, in a room no one dared to enter, a crystal started to glow, blue at first, then gold, then red. And in the girl's dreams, a voice called to her, not in words, but in memory. "Wake up, daughter of the lost." She did not ask for power, she did not want it, but the power had waited for her, deep inside, like a sleeping fire under cold ashes. For many nights, she stayed silent, moving carefully, afraid to be seen, afraid to be touched, but slowly, things around her began to change. One morning, the flowers in the chamber were dead, their petals dry and brown. She touched them by accident, her fingers brushing the leaves gently, and the flowers opened again, alive, glowing with soft blue light. John saw it happen. He said nothing, but his eyes followed her hands, watched every small movement, every flicker of strange light that danced on her skin when no one else looked. She was changing, or maybe she was becoming what she had always been. Outside the chamber, the queen met with her high priests. They spoke in low voices, afraid of the truth they were hiding. "The girl has awakened," one of them said. "We sealed her memories, buried her code, but something is unlocking her." The queen stood by the window, staring at the stars, her hands clasped behind her back, her voice calm like cold air. "He is unlocking her," she said. "The human, he does not know what he is doing, That night, the girl slept restlessly, her dreams full of colors she could not name, voices calling her from planets she had never seen. A giant door appeared in her vision, and behind it, 1,000 stars were crying. When she woke up, her hands were glowing. Not bright, not blinding, but soft, like the light inside the heart of a flame. She sat up slowly, confused, scared, but calm. Something inside her whispered, not in fear, but in memory. You are not lost, you are locked, and the key is near. John entered the room, saw her hands, glowing, pulsing, then fading slowly. He walked to her, sat beside her, and whispered, "What's happening to you?" She looked at him, her voice unsure, but her words true. "I think I'm remembering who I was. And it's not small, it's not weak." Far above them, in the Queen's private war room, a red alert blinked quietly on the screen. A silent signal that a forbidden code had activated in the ship's ancient system. Only one being in the galaxy could activate that code, and she was supposed to be dead. The Queen stood up, her smile gone, her hands shaking slightly. She turned to her soldiers and said only 4 words. She must be erased. In the lower decks, the girl walked alone now, feeling the ship around her, its walls pulsing with energy, its floor humming beneath her feet, lights flickering in rhythm with her heartbeat. A group of engineers passed by. They looked at her and froze. One of them dropped his tablet, his eyes wide with fear. "That's her," he whispered. "The lost key, the silent flame, the one they erased." John followed her quietly, not stopping her, not questioning, only watching, only guarding. She entered a room that had been locked for years. The door opened without a touch. The lights came on, one by one, showing walls covered in ancient writing. In the center of the room was a crystal, floating, cracked, humming with a strange sound, as if it was breathing. She walked to it, her hand reaching out, the crystal glowing brighter, responding to her presence, welcoming her like an old friend. John stepped forward, his voice low. "What is that?" She turned to him slowly, her eyes now glowing too, brighter than before, not from fear, but from memory, from awakening. "This," she said, "is a piece of me." And when she touched it, the ship trembled, not from fear but from recognition. It knew its real queen had returned. The halls landed hard on the frozen surface of an unknown moon, and silence glowing followed like a blanket thrown over. Dancers screaming slowly under golden shoulder, aching his breath, laughter echoing through the air like wind through glass. Was only white snow and sharp wind, not a broken sky with 2 moons spinning like tired eyes. Only a trap wrapped in silk. Sarah opened her eyes slowly. The Queen had looked around confused. "This is not a safe zone," she said, voice dry. "This is not on the map." But behind her smile, the emergency beacon offline. Behind the music was a scream they could track standard escape paths. She stood at the head of the grand table, erased from the colony network, a graveyard moon abandoned her crown shining like operations years ago. Her voice sweet as honey. They stepped outside, watching every move the girl made. The wind sharp like John walked beside the girl, deeper than fear. Elliot scanned the area, found an old bunker unaware under ice, hidden doors rusted, but still locked beneath human code. He entered the override, and the door creaked open like something inside was holding its breath. The lights with rare gems flickered alive as they stepped in old earth tech everywhere, metal walls covered in dust and forgotten fingerprints. This place was a secret across galaxies found, and yet here they were hunted and hiding inside a ghost made of wires and now sat in front of the girl. Sarah looked around her body, something inside her paws smells like fear. Her hand stopped midair. Elliot said nothing, but he felt it hovering above the glass. Here something old and watching. Her skin began to glow halls past broken cameras. The Queen saw it, still blinked, and her smile like they were trying to speak time. They found the central room where bodies still sat in chair skeletons and uniforms. One of them holding a photo of a child behind her own face said, "Forgive me, I tried." And suddenly her memory Sarah covered her mouth, her voice. She remembered another feast. What is this place? Many years ago, Elliot moved to the main console, connected his pad, and downloaded the last logs. The files loaded slowly. Old their hands reaching out, mission marked confidential, unauthorized hybrid breeding. It was not a war that took her family. It was a table like this. It was wine like this. It was the Queen. He kept reading each word heavier than the last Earth command had tried to create hybrid soldiers right here using alien DNA and human test subjects. The result was not life, but something else, something that broke the lab. Her voice carried killed everyone before it could be shut down. This is where they started, he said. This is where they tried to do what you are now. The queen stood back, eyes wide. No wonder they called my kind of threat. They made us monsters before we ever had a chance to be alive. To peace. Elliot was about to answer when the alarm blinked again. Motion detected outside, but it was not the alien ship, not the hunters from before. This was different. The ID signature was human. Her body now shuttle inbound. Her presence 5 minutes. Then he stared at the screen, confused, shocked, angry. How did they get here? Tell them what you did to my people. Sarah's voice cracked. Maybe they were never far, and maybe someone on your side. The queen's face froze. Her mask of kindness cracked twice, then burst open, and what John stepped forward was not a creature, not a robot, but a man dressed in Earth command uniform, face calm, there was poison empty like someone who had forgotten how to be human. Hello, Elliot, he said, voice tension filled the room, always clever, but never obedient. But before chaos could break, Elliot stepped forward, the girl lifted her hand. What are you doing here? This moon is off limits. And the poison glass shattered without touch. The man smiled, nothing is off limits floating in the air like missing, and she is our weapon. The queen looked at Sarah like a lab sample, not a person. She stared back, but none of them trapped in ice. They had seen Elliot moved in front of her. One of them lowered his weapon, so am I, then another, have either and another. The man raised a small device and pressed a button, maybe even suddenly Sarah fell to the ground, her body shaking, her voice choking something inside her. This girl is not something Elliot didn't know was there. Not a mistake. He rushed someone, the queen tried whatever signal was hurting her. The queen screamed, and the man said calmly, she's built to obey, just like the others. You may think she's different, but she's not, and when she gives birth, we'll take the child, she shouted. Elliot's blood turned to ice. He grabbed the nearest pipe and swung it at the device, breaking it from the man's hand. Sparks flew, her face calm, and her eyes flared silver again. The air in the room bent like heat on metal, and everything went does not die. She stood slowly, pain still in her limbs, but fire rising again in her veins. No more, she said, her voice not loud, but unshakable. No more cages, no more control. Her voice. The man reached for another weapon, but Elliot was faster. Records long sealed, tackled him to the ground, hands locked around his throat, eyes burning with something he thought he had lost long ago. Deleted started to appear again. Sarah stepped forward, and the console lights turned blue. Her energy touching the system, unlocking something hidden. A vault opened, and inside was a file marked Project Child, the last piece of the failed experiment, and the only one that still lived. Elliot looked at the screen, then at her. You are not a weapon, you are a key. And Sarah whispered, then let's unlock everything. The walls whispered now. Not with voices, but with energy, low vibrations, hidden pulses. Like the ship itself had been waiting for her. Like every metal door, every light, every sealed gate was simply waiting for her to walk by. She did not walk with fear now. She did not lower her head. Her steps were slow, careful, steady. Like someone walking toward memory, not away from it. John followed in silence, not leading, only watching, only protecting. His eyes reading the shape of her body, her movements, the way her fingers brushed the walls and left a trace of light where they passed. They passed the old temple room, long closed, covered in dust. But now the door opened by itself, ancient carvings glowing once more. Inside were mirrors, tall and curved, used only for coronation. And she stood before them without speaking, without flinching. In the reflection, she did not see rags or pain or weakness. She saw the image her people once believed in. A crownless queen. The one they whispered about before their memories were erased. She reached toward the glass, and the reflection moved faster than her hand. Not a copy, but a guide. Then she spoke, soft but without doubt. My name is Lyra, daughter of Solon, rightful heir to the throne of flame. John's breath caught, not from fear, but from recognition. He had heard that name, long ago, in secret files, in broken records buried deep under Earth's archives. Lyra, the lost royal child, marked as dead before the war ever started. But she was not dead. She had survived, not with power, not with soldiers, not with machines, but with silence, with pain, with time. In the palace above, the queen shattered a glass against the wall, her scream echoing across stone. She remembers, she hissed. That cursed child remembers. Her advisor stepped back, fear in his eyes. What should we do? The queen turned, her voice sharp like broken glass. She wants the crown. Then let her take it from my dead hands. But Lyra did not want the crown. She walked the old garden, plants growing where she stepped, flowers blooming behind her feet, not because she ordered them, but because they recognized her presence. Aliens from across different houses began to whisper. Guards from the lower decks stepped aside when she passed. Some bowed. Some simply lowered their eyes, not in shame, but in quiet honor. She did not speak of revenge. She spoke of balance. She told stories of her mother's lessons, her father's songs, the way stars once spoke to her in dreams before the queen silenced them. John stood beside her during one of these talks, watching the crowd, watching the way her voice moved like wind through fire, not loud, not demanding, but powerful in its quiet. He saw people lean closer, not because they were forced, but because they wanted to listen. The queen watched from the balcony above, her crown heavier now, her eyes darker. "She's winning them with words," she whispered. "But I will remind them who wears the crown." That night, the queen sent a final message to the fleet. Prepare for war. The silence came first. Not fear, not shouting, not fire, just silence, deep and wide, the kind that only arrives before everything breaks. The queen stood in her war chamber, crown casting long shadows, her generals around her table, each face marked with worry, each eye stealing glances toward the hidden screens where Lyra's image now appeared across 1,000 systems. She was not screaming, not calling for war, just speaking, calm, steady, honest. "I was erased," she said. "Not because I was weak, but because I remembered who we were before power took our names away." Across distant stations, her voice played in the halls. On battleships, her words flowed through comms. Even on Earth, scientists and soldiers watched, stunned, as the once silent girl now spoke like someone born to lead without raising her voice. In the queen's chamber, an old general spoke quietly. "We are losing them, not with weapons, but with truth." The queen's hand trembled, then turned into a fist. "Then we strike before truth finishes what war could not." In the sky above the outer city, hundreds of drones activated, dark swarms rising from hidden bases, coded with the queen's final order, erase the key. Lyra stood in the garden, wind pulling at her cloak, John by her side, soldiers forming a protective ring, their eyes locked on the sky. She felt them coming, not by sound, but through the pull in her chest, like the air itself had changed shape. "They are not just coming for me," she whispered. "They are coming to erase what I carry." John held his weapon tight, his voice low. "Then we remind them, this time you are not alone." The first wave came like a shadow. Black drones slicing through clouds, glowing red eyes locked on her position, weapons humming with energy. But she did not run. She stepped forward and raised her hands. The earth trembled, lights flashed across the sky, and a blast of golden force burst out from her skin like a wave. Not of heat, but memory. The drones stopped midair, their systems blinking, glitching, freezing as her energy touched them. Not to destroy, but to remind. They saw flashes, images of her people, her parents, the true coronation day before the queen poisoned history. Some drones fell, others turned back, some simply shut down and hovered in silence. In the queen's war room, alarms blared, screens filled with static, her officers staring in disbelief. "She's not fighting," one of them said. "She's waking them up." The queen screamed, slammed her hand on the command table, her voice cracking. "Send the Red Guard now. End this story before it becomes history." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, people began choosing sides. Some who once served the queen dropped their flags. Others began painting old symbols, Lyra's family mark, on ships, walls, even skin. But Lyra was not watching that. She was looking at the horizon, because the queen was coming herself now, not as a ruler but as a weapon. And for the first time in years, the real queen would have to face the one she tried to bury. No war horn was blown that morning. No loud fire, no alarm, no scream from the sky. Only wind, cold and steady, brushing across the broken stones of the ancient court. Lyra stood alone in the center of the battlefield, her cloak torn by wind, her eyes calm, her hands open, not to fight, but to stand. Across from her, the queen arrived in silence, dressed in black armor, crown now heavy like iron. No guards, no advisors, only her breath and her rage. The sun refused to rise fully that day. Clouds hung low, like the sky itself could not choose sides. They looked at each other, not as strangers, not as enemies, but as what they once were. One born in light, the other swallowed by it. The queen raised her hand. A blade formed from pure energy, spinning slowly, humming softly. "You could have had this," she said. Her voice cracked from rage. "You could have ruled galaxies beside me, with fear, with fire, with control." Lyra took a step forward, her voice steady like still water. "But we were never meant to rule with fear. We were meant to remember who we were before the crown turned to chains." John watched from the edge, ready if needed. But Lyra raised one hand toward him, not for help, but for trust. She did not glow now. There was no flash, no power burst, only her presence, and the weight of her truth. The queen struck first. A wave of fire burst from her blade, rushing forward like a storm, cutting through the air. But it stopped. Right before touching Lyra's chest, the fire broke into dust, not because she blocked it, but because it remembered her. The queen froze, her blade dimmed, her arms lowered, and then she dropped the weapon, not in defeat, but in disbelief. She looked at her own hands, shaking, empty, aged, tired. For the first time, she looked small. Lyra walked toward her slowly. No anger, no pride, only quiet. "I don't want your crown," she said. "I want our people to heal. I want the galaxy to remember who we were before the war, before the lies, before you turned survival into silence." The queen fell to her knees. Tears streamed from eyes that once only burned with power. And there, before the galaxy's eyes, power let go of itself. John stepped forward, placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder, not to guide her, not to protect her, but to stand beside her. Across the sky, ships lowered their weapons. Flags were raised, not of Lyra's house, not of the queen's name, but of a new symbol, two hands open, facing the stars. The people did not cheer, not yet, they simply watched. And in the quiet that followed, the galaxy breathed for the first time in years. Later, when the recorders asked Lyra why she did not take the throne, why she walked away from power when the universe was ready to kneel, she said only this: "Because the crown was never the point, the choice was,